Here we will be taking up Chapter 1 of this book, written by J. Gordon Melton, currently a researcher with the Department of Religious Studies at UC Santa Barbara. He's also an ordained minister in the United Methodist Church, and the Church of Scientology has recommended him as an excellent source for information on religions and cults through their Cult Awareness Network website. He founded and is chairman of the Institute for the Study of American Religion and is the chairman of the Center for Studies on New Religions, CESNR, which is an organization famous as the world's foremost cult apologist organization. Melton has been doing cult apologetics work since the 1970s for many other groups besides just Scientology. For example, you may recall a Japanese religious cult called Aum Shinrikyo, who in 1995 carried out a sarin gas attack in a Japanese subway, which killed 12 people, severely injured 50 more, and caused temporary vision problems with upwards of 5,000 people. Shortly after the attack, Melton and James Lewis actually reached out to Aum Shinrikyo and offered their assistance. With their hotel, airfare, and basic expenses paid by the cult, they went to Japan and defended Aum Shinrikyo's religious freedom, stating in a press conference that the group could not possibly have produced the sarin gas and was simply a victim of excessive police pressure. 2 months prior, the police had already discovered the chemical weapons laboratory at Aum's compound and were quite certain that they had carried out the attack. So all Melton and Lewis accomplished in their apologetics defense was to discredit their own profession and make themselves look like morons, or worse. I could not find anything from Melton where he later apologized for or took back his defense of Aum Shinrikyo. Melton also takes a dim view on apostates, or former religious group members, who he claims always and invariably distort the truth in their quest to take down their former groups. He stated on record that when he is investigating cults, you never rely upon the unverified testimony of ex-members. To put it bluntly, hostile ex-members invariably shade the truth. They invariably blow out of proportion minor incidents and turn them into major incidents. He further stated, the major source of primary data to appear in anti-cult books comes from the reports of ex-members who have broken with the group because of an intense internal dispute or deprogramming. Unfortunately, their testimonies are usually highly distorted by their hostility and desire to hurt the group at all costs. I certainly agree that one should verify information given by any source, but Melton makes it clear that he has an anti-apostate bias, and his work is clearly flawed by this, as we'll go over. In fact, he actually seems to have a vested interest as an academic in helping destructive cults put on a good public appearance, even when they have committed mass murder. So, what does he have to say in Chapter 1 of Scientology? He begins by stating that Scientology has been controversial, its religious status questioned, and it has been the subject of multiple court cases. All true. He says that his chapter will be an attempt to 1. Provide an overview of the life of L. Ron Hubbard anchored by the generally accepted facts, 2. An introduction to the church's beliefs, practices, and organization, and 3. A summary of the major points of the controversy. In the first paragraph on L. Ron Hubbard's life, Melton begins to forward the church's narrative rather than anything factual. And there is an interesting note as to why. L. Ron Hubbard was a pathological liar and spun many varied stories about himself, his education, war record, and how he came up with Dianetics and Scientology in the first place. These lies have been extensively documented and debunked over and over again. But the seminal work done on Hubbard's actual life was done by British journalist Russell Miller in 1987. His research notes and interviews with Hubbard's family, contemporaries, former Scientology workers, and friends are extensive. But of course, the Church of Scientology would not assist him because he did not work for them, and would not parrot Hubbard's lies about his own life. Regardless, Miller traveled around the U.S. to the places Hubbard grew up and lived, and in reading his book, you have no question that it is an attempt at a truly objective recording of what L. Ron Hubbard's life actually consisted of. This is why Scientology hired private investigators to try to smear and harass Miller, sued Miller's publishing house, and took their case all the way to the Supreme Court to block its publication. They failed to stop it in the UK and Canada, and the book has since been positively reviewed and is widely regarded as the best and most comprehensive biography of L. Ron Hubbard ever. On their end, the Church of Scientology hired writer and high-level Scientologist Dan Sherman as L. Ron Hubbard's biographer in the early 1990s. Sherman apparently did complete a biography and still works for Scientology as a speechwriter. The only person I know who has read the manuscript of Sherman's biography is former Scientologist Steve Hall. In July 2015, journalist Tony Ortega quoted Steve on his blog, The Underground Bunker. "It will never come out, I'll tell you that," Steve says. "I've read it. It was a manuscript in a 3-ring binder." Steve says he was supposed to be working on a script for a biographical film about Hubbard, so another executive allowed him to read the manuscript. Hubbard's too corrupt. They can't ever let that get published. Sherman covers Hubbard's bigamy, for example, Hall says, referring to Hubbard's 1946 marriage to Sarah Northrup, when he was still married to his first wife, Margaret Polly Grubb, who he divorced in 1947. The manuscript covers it, but Sherman spins it, saying that Hubbard did it to save Sarah, he says. But for Steve, it was something of a revelation. As a former Sea Org member, he had no idea about that part of Hubbard's life. I was shocked when I read it. So, here you have 2 biographies of L. Ron Hubbard which the church works to keep under wraps. Even the one they commissioned one of their own members to write. This leaves the church with a major problem of having to reiterate Hubbard's own lies about himself and double down on those lies whenever they are challenged. And so we come back to J. Gordon Melton. What is he using as his source references for Hubbard's life? Here's what he says in one of the footnotes in this chapter. The Church of Scientology has yet to produce a biography of Hubbard, though it has put out a series of biographical booklets that highlight important areas of his life through his own writings and added commentary, and a photographic biography, L. Ron Hubbard, Images of a Lifetime, a photographic biography. A comprehensive biography is due out soon. The best of the several biographies attempted by critics, The Barefaced Messiah by Russell Miller, is seriously lacking, as Miller did not have access to many of the documents relating to the rise and progress of the church. And there we are. The only source of information Melton is willing to consider are those produced by the Church of Scientology. He labels Miller a critic, which he is not and has never claimed to be, and can't even get the name of Miller's book right. He writes off the entire work because he claims that Miller did not have access to what? The church's documents about its own expansion? This example, all on its own, tells you exactly what Melton's problems are as a researcher and academic. He is only willing to consider one source of information, and a highly biased source at that. So how does this affect his work? Well, let's look at one of the next sentences in his essay about Hubbard's early life. Befriended by the local Blackfoot Indians, he was made a blood brother at the age of 6. This claim was debunked in June 1990 by LA Times reporters Joel Sapple and Robert W. Welkos. Here is how it was reported. As L. Ron Hubbard told it, he was 4 years old when a medicine man named Old Tom made him a blood brother of the Blackfeet Indians of Montana, providing the inspiration for the Scientology founder's first novel, Buckskin Brigades. But one expert on the tribe doesn't buy Hubbard's account. Historian Hugh Dempsey is Associate Director of the Glenbow Museum in Calgary, Canada. He has extensively researched the tribe, of which his wife is a member. He said that blood brothers are an old Hollywood idea, and that the act was never done among the Blackfeet. As for Old Tom, Dempsey has informed doubts. For one thing, he said, the name does not appear in a 1907 Blackfeet enrollment register containing the names of hundreds of tribal members. For another, it's the kind of name for that period, 1915, that would practically not exist among the Blackfeet, he said. At that time, Blackfeet did not have Christian names. In 1985, church leaders produced a document that they say proves Hubbard was not lying. Typed on Blackfeet Nation stationery, it states, "To commemorate the 70th anniversary of L. Ron Hubbard becoming a blood brother of the Blackfeet Nation, Tree Manyfeathers in a ceremony re-established L. Ron Hubbard as a blood brother to the Blackfeet tribe." The document actually is meaningless because none of the three men who signed it were authorized to take any action on the tribe's behalf, according to Blackfeet Nation officials. The document was created by Richard Matthaes, a Scientologist of fractional Indian descent. Matthaes said in an interview he tried to prove Hubbard was a Blackfeet blood brother, but came up empty-handed. "It's not," he said, "something you go down to the courthouse and look up." So Matthaes, using the name Tree Manyfeathers, said he held a private ceremony, made Hubbard his own blood brother, and along with two other men, signed the commemorative document. "You should not give it, the document, very much credibility," said John Yellow Kidney, former vice president of the tribe's executive committee. "I don't." So, guess what document Melton has used as the source reference for his claim that Hubbard was made a blood brother of the Blackfoot Indians? Yep, the very same document created by Scientologist Richard Matthaes. This is the quality of Melton's academic research into Hubbard's life.